Podsters, I'm going to share something with you that I wish someone had shared with me. And had they shared it, it would have definitely made a big difference in my life. Here's what it is. It's okay to not be okay. I'm going to say it again. It's okay to not be okay. In today's episode, I talk about normalizing that things aren't always okay and that we all need help. We all need support. And an abnormal emotional response to an abnormal situation is normal. We don't get to choose what emotions we want to have. So when you're not okay, it's okay. And here's how you can enlist the help of other people to support you. So it's a little deep, Podsters. It's very helpful. And as we closed out Mental Health Awareness Month in May, it's timely. So here we go, Podsters. Buckle up because this is going to be an emotional roller coaster today. Are you ready to speak up, stand out, and get your seat at the table? If so, you're in the right place. Welcome to Unmute Yourself, the podcast where you'll get real life anecdotes and actionable tools for you to step into your strengths, debunk imposter syndrome, truly know your worth, and show up like you own the room every time. I'm your host, Nancy Medoff, who did the thing and followed my passion for empowering women like you to unleash that inner spark and become who you know you are meant to be. I'm a diehard foodie with a raging Skittles habit who will not stop until women everywhere unmute themselves and truly thrive at work, at home, or wherever you may be. Let's do this. Podsters, what is up? I am back. How are you? It is June, and I, for one, am so ready for summer. I can't wait. I have my barefoot summer journal that I created, which is super fun. Stay tuned on social media. I'm going to show you about it. But today I'm popping in here to close the loop on, for those of you who are loyal followers and have been following for a while, you know that I was going through some stuff a little while ago, and I said I'd come back and talk to you about it, and that's what I'm going to do today. And I am going to talk about why it is okay to not be okay and how we need to normalize not being okay. I can't even tell you how life-changing this is for me. Because when I was going through the stuff, and I'll get to it in a minute, everybody's fine. See what I just did? I just did it myself. When I was going through that difficult time, it was really shocking to me how many times people would ask me how I was doing, and I'd be like, I'm great, how are you? Or, oh, everything's great, how are you? And I wasn't, and it wasn't. And it just felt very inauthentic. And that's why I want to come on and talk to you today, not as a Debbie Downer. I'm about being upbeat. I am also all about being very real and authentic. And I would not be real and authentic if I didn't talk to you about why it's okay to not be okay. So here's what I have for you today, Podsters. We all need help at some point in our lives, and we all need support. So why then do we say I'm fine when I'm not? When I think about how many times over the past 12 weeks somebody asked me how I was doing, and I was saying, I'm fine. How are you? Have you seen those reels, or I'm sure you've heard this, where the narrator comes in and says, or they say, I'm fine. The narrator, she was not indeed fine. And that's what I felt like every time I would say it. It was like there was someone on my shoulder saying she was not indeed fine. No one wants to say, I get it. No one wants to say, oh, thank you, casual acquaintance. I'm experiencing a major trauma and there's nothing you can do to help. Or no one really wants to say, thanks for asking. I'm pretty crappy. Of course, nobody wants to say that. However, how often do we respond to the question, how are you, with I'm fine? Or even not great, but I know this is just part of life, so I'm fine. How are you really? Or how are you? So how about instead we be truthful and we be truthful with ourselves and our loved ones. So, there's a difference between a casual acquaintance saying, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? If it's somebody you bump into in an airport or you're at the grocery store and it's really, they're just being polite. There are many people in our lives who ask how we're doing and they really want to know. So I guess what I'm saying here is, for me, this was it. I couldn't be truthful. I couldn't be truthful with myself, and I couldn't be truthful with my loved ones because I was not okay with not being okay. I couldn't admit that I wasn't okay. For me personally, I'm always okay. I'm an optimist. I'm an extrovert. I'm a confidence coach, for God's sakes. This is what I do for a living. So, how could I say to people, you know what, I'm not great? I'm not great, frankly. I wouldn't let myself do it. So here's what happens when you do that. Here's what happens. Here's what happens when you do that. Here's what happened when I did it. You're not being authentic. And we are very big on authenticity around here at Unmute Yourself, the podcast. You're missing an opportunity to connect with another human being, which human connection has never been more important. And side note, that other human that you're talking to, they may have a shared experience and they might be able to help you. When you say you're fine when you're not, you are shaming yourself unnecessarily. And that, I'm going to get emotional. That to me that was what was really powerful. I was shaming myself into the shadows and telling myself subconsciously, it is not okay to be okay, to be not okay. You need to be fine. You need to be great. And I was in denial. I was giving away my power by not admitting that and by trying to be something I wasn't. And frankly, I think, podsters, you could be gaslighting yourselves. You know, just kind of like, wait a minute, like gaslighting, thinking you're okay and playing mind games with yourself to think that you're okay when you're not okay. So it's very complicated, as you can see, podsters. And I read something when I was looking this up because I wanted to get some information for you, some factual information. And something I read really resonated with me, and it's this: an abnormal emotional response to an abnormal situation is normal. We cannot simply pick the emotions we want to have. And that really, really struck me. And I wish I had read it 12 weeks ago. And I'm going to read it again. An abnormal emotional response to an abnormal situation is normal. I'm not used to not being okay. And I needed to get used to it because guess what? I wasn't. I am now. I wasn't then. So we talked about here's what happens when you put on the brave face. I'm going to talk to you for a minute about what happened. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to go through what to say instead. So if you're going through a thing, I'm going to save the story of what happened with me till the end. So here's what to say instead. When someone says, how are you? Or how are things? Here's what you can say instead. I've had a lot of caffeine this morning. You can say, I've been better. You can say, we're going through a difficult time. Thanks for asking. You can say, you know what? I'm experiencing life's ups and downs like we all do. What I want to make sure you do is you do not qualify your response if you don't want to. You don't have to explain anything to anyone. You can say, you'll notice the first thing I said was I've been better, and I let it just sit there, right? If you're not comfortable with that, you can say, I've been better, so let's talk about what's happening with you. Great, change the conversation. We're very big on that. You can say, I've been better, but such is life. What's going on with you? How are the kids? You can say, I've been better, but I'm on the other side. I'm coming out of it. Great, if you want to. You don't have to if you want to. So I would give myself a B- on how I managed what was happening with me. And that's a little, actually, that's a little kind because I could have handled it better. So here's what's up. Here's what happened. If you follow me on social, you might know. And by the way, I want to start by saying I'm not minimizing when I wasn't okay. I want to also acknowledge that what happened with me pales in comparison with a lot of people's strifes and traumas. This was not a trauma. This was not a medical condition. This was a situation that I had control over that was not fun for me or was not pleasant. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm sitting here saying, oh, woe is me. I am healthy. My family is healthy. My husband is wonderful. My family is great. So my life is great. This was a finite period of time where I was going through some stuff that I'm going to share with you. And believe me, there's an expression, I don't know if you've heard it, where if everybody stands around in a circle and throws in all their problems, guaranteed you take your problems back home with you. You don't want other people's problems. So here's what happened. If you follow me on social, you may have seen that I ran for public office in my small town. I live in a very small town. It's about 2,300 people year round. And this was very new to me. I had been thinking about it for a while, for a couple of years. I had been tossing the idea around. I discussed it with my family. I discussed it with Danny, and we both felt that it was time. I felt that I could and can help move the town forward. I have skills that I have developed over the past 30 years that I think the town really needs. So I decided to run. So I was completely out of my comfort zone. And when I say out of my comfort zone, I mean in terms of process. Like I don't know how to run a political campaign. In fact, somebody called it a campaign and I kind of laughed the first couple of weeks. I'm like, this isn't a campaign. I'm running. I'm going to maybe get a few signs and talk about why I think I can add value. And that's it. No, that is not the case. This became a campaign. There are rules, there are regulations, there is strategy. I didn't know any of this, none of it. And again, I ran because I thought and think I can help move the town forward. It's that simple. I have enough on my plate. I have a successful business. I have a wonderful podcast community. I have a wonderful family. I have everything I need or want. This is simply because I care about my town and I care about my community and I think I can help. So this is how I ran, with honesty and integrity. I put it all out there like everything else. Here's a few ideas. Here's my plan for what I would do. Here's what I would do differently. I don't know everything. I'm sure I don't know more than I do know in this particular situation. And based on my perspective, here's what I think. Great, simple, easy peasy. Not so fast, podsters, not so fast. So I ran with honesty and integrity, and then the haters came out, which is fascinating to me because, as I mentioned, it's a very small town. This is not, I was not running for president of the United States. I was not running for Senate. I was running for a small town leadership position in the town. There were memes about me. There were reels made about me. There were legit, full-blown, straight-up lies. These were not misunderstandings. These were lies. There was campaigns against me. There were campaigns against me personally, attacking me personally. My husband, like, whoa, hey, hold up. There was scheming. And if you think about it, this is truly absurd. And I'd love to say I was naive. I don't think I was naive. I'm a wear my heart on my sleeve. What you see is what you get. No ulterior motives. Like the last thing I'm going to do is puppeteer and be a puppet master and do it. Like, it's just not who I am. And I have no time for that. No tolerance for that either. And yet this is what happened. So at any point I could have stepped out. I could have said, okay, I didn't sign up for this. No, thank you. I don't need this. No, thanks. Bye. I didn't, because I truly believed, and I still believe, that I'm the best person for the job. Side note, there were 2 open positions. I did get elected, and so did another woman. And I think we're gonna do a great job. So all of this is to say, podsters, I was not okay. And I had to show up on stage. I had to show up with my coaching. I had to show up for you all. And you may have noticed I wasn't myself over the past several weeks. And this is me getting choked up again. Because giving away that power, giving away my power over how I feel, that will never happen again. That will never happen again. And I had to go through it to realize that. And I'm going to give you some tips on what I would have done differently. If and when you're not okay, this is what I would have done differently. Anyway, keep in mind, again, this wasn't President of the United States. This was a small community where I thought I could add value. So I kept going. My work suffered from just lack of attention, which I knew it would. Before I chose to do this, I sat down and said, okay, what kind of a hit is my business going to take? Am I okay with this? I am. I had a great year last year. This is a year that I could kind of be a little more selective in what I put on my plate. My personal life suffered. My husband had to hear these terrible things. And I was shell shocked. I was just like, what? Again, like it was just surreal. So, Podsters, here's why I gave myself a B minus on how I managed this. So, here's what I did well. I stayed hydrated. I truly believe this, by the way. I stayed hydrated. Like if you can stay hydrated, that's a win. That's one little win that's saying I have control. I'm staying hydrated. For me, that was important. I tried to honor my sleep routine, but that was difficult. It was. It was. I'm going to be honest. I counted on my friends and supporters. I could have done that better. I could have leaned on my friends and supporters a little more. And I could have planned for the future a little bit better, I think. I oftentimes will say everything is temporary. And that is true. The good times, temporary. The bad times, temporary. You're on top of your game, enjoy it because it's temporary. You're at the bottom of the bottom, it's okay, it's temporary. So that's what I did well. I stayed hydrated. I tried to keep my sleep going, counted on my friends. Here's what I could have done better. Number one, and I'm going to say this loud, social media. No, no, no. Now, here's what I'm saying. All of my social media managers that are out there listening, all of you who love social media, these are my dear friends. During a time where you are raw or vulnerable or you really want to control what's going on in your mind, I'm going to say no to social media. This wasn't just about me. Like this wasn't just about social media as it relates to the memes and the stories and the cyberbullying. I mean, this is full on cyberbullying and all of that. No. So first of all, no, I shut that down. I blocked people. I asked people not to tell me. So this was fascinating too. So I went out to my friends and I said, hey guys, I know you're all on Facebook. This is mostly Facebook. And I said, I'm going to ask you not to share with me if you see something about me, unless it's really, really serious. I don't want that in my brain. I don't want it taking up my brain space. And most people kind of adhere to that. There were a few people, and some of you listen to this podcast, who would send me snapshots, screenshots. And I would politely respond and say, thank you for sending. No, I didn't say thank you for sending this. I said, thank you for thinking of me and keeping me informed. I've mentioned before, and I'm going to mention again, I prefer not to see this. I'm going to ask you again, please do not send this kind of thing to me. Don't. Like, hello, what's the point of me blocking somebody if then you're going to send me what they're saying? And there are keyboard warriors on social media, as many of you know, who would never say anything like that to your face. And to me, I just know. The other thing about social media, there is a lot going on in regard to what's happening in Gaza and what's happening in the Ukraine. All of that, if my feed is populated with tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, and then attack after attack after attack on me, attack on, others, think about the toxicity that's in my head. So that's something I could have done better. I should have shut down social media earlier or limited my exposure to it earlier. And that's something that I would do differently next time. I would have sought more joy. I would have tried to turn it off more. It's difficult because in my case, again, my friends and family, they care and they want to help. And they're like, how's it going? How's everything going? There were times when I didn't want to talk about it. Like, you know what? I'm tired of talking about it. We've been talking about it all day. You're not the ones that are getting attacked. So I probably would have had better boundaries. And, my boundaries went bye-bye. And I am being vulnerable and I am being honest because it was uncharted territory. And I kept to some of them. I did, and I'm proud of that. But I could have been better with boundaries around what people share with me, around, you can't just say it's Saturday, I don't want to talk about this, or it's nighttime, I don't want to talk about this, or hey, honey, we're lying in bed, I'd prefer not to talk about the latest meme, or, whatever the case may be. I could have been better about some of that. I would have given less headspace to the haters and more headspace to the lovers. And here's what I mean by that. The people who believe in me and the people who are counting on me. So I'm going to stop talking about me for a second and make it about you. If I think about how the stress that was on me personally and on my psyche personally, how it affected my relationships, that's something I would have done differently. if you're not letting people help you, and if you're not letting people support you, and if you're not being honest and saying, you know what, I'm not okay, and I'd prefer not to talk about it, or I'm not okay, and here's what's going on, or I'm not okay, and here's how you can help me. You can help me by telling me about your daughter and how she's doing. You can help me by going for a walk with me and not talking about the situation. You can help me by telling me about what's going on with you. You can help me by telling me a funny story. You can help me by making me laugh or whatever the case may be. If you're not doing that, that's on you. And that's something that I could have done better. I didn't talk about it. I kept it all inside, and it just wasn't healthy. So what kept me going, Podsters, is the people that are counting on me, the people who believed in me, the people who need me and said, we need you, we want you, we believe in you. That's what kept me going. It wasn't pride and it wasn't determination. It was, no, I'm not going to let these people down. And I'm not. It was a fierce commitment to the people who put their trust in me. And that will never waver, ever. So you can come at me all you want. I have an obligation to try to help the people that I serve, and I will do that. And I will continue to do that. So, by the way, the fact that this all happened during Mental Health Awareness Month is not lost on me. And even though it's June, I think, by the way, every month should be Mental Health Awareness Month. The one of the positive things that came out of COVID, there was a lot of negative that came out of it, obviously, but one of the positive things was normalizing. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How can I help you? How can I help? And the shame in some cases going away around mental health. That's one of the positives that came out of COVID. So even though it's June, every month should be Mental Health Awareness Month. I mean, we shouldn't need one. It's there is no stigma unless we give it a stigma. And that's why I'm here talking about it. I'm not talking about it here today to say, woe is me, feel bad for me. Nope. I'm here talking about it because now I can talk about it. I'm physically able to talk about it. And I could have handled it better. And it's okay to not be okay. It doesn't matter who you are. Obviously, I'm not going to get on a stage and say, good afternoon, everybody. Let me tell you about all my troubles. And at the same time, when a good friend calls me and says, how are you? How's it going? Why wouldn't I say, you know what? It's not going that great. Do you have some time to talk about it? Or, you know what? It's not going that great. Are you really asking, or is that just kind of an icebreaker? Do you really want to know, or do you have the time to talk about it? Or, you know what? Not great. I really need your advice. Is now a good time? I will often say, when somebody says something to me or share something with me, I'll say, are you looking to vent or are you looking for my advice? And most of the time they're looking for advice. Sometimes they're just looking to vent. So if somebody says, how you doing? And you say, you know what, I'm not that great. Can I vent for a second? And I actually did this with Danny. I would say, are you in the mental headspace for me to vent for a few minutes? Because this was tough on him too. And most of the time, of course, he would say, yeah, of course, honey. But sometimes he would say, can you give me a few minutes? And we would regroup. Anyway, Podsters, all of this is to say, I hope I covered everything. I think I did. No one's perfect. And it is okay to not be okay. And you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the people who love you and care about you, to be honest. An abnormal emotional response to an abnormal situation is normal. So with that, Podsters, here's what's up. Barefoot summer is in full progress. I will have you know, I have been barefoot summering for the past week. I'm back. I know I often say I'm back. I'm like 1,000% back. I am really excited. So we have some really, really cool episodes coming up this month. July, I want to have a little more fun because it's my birthday month. By the way, I will be giving away a signed copy of Unmute Yourself, the book, for everyone who sends me a DM or responds to the questions on Spotify about the podcast. Free signed copy of Unmute Yourself, the book. If you comment on what you want to hear about or what resonated with you, or take a screenshot of the podcast as you're listening to it, share it on social media, tag me, any of those, they mean the world to me. I am back. I am rebuilding the community here. And together podcasters or podsters, together podsters and podcasters, because many of you are podcasters, together we got it because we're better together. So thank you for listening. Thank you, by the way, for those of you who reached out to me over the past few weeks. I responded to everyone, I think. If I didn't, thank you for your patience and your grace. And at the end of the day, we're all we've got. So let's normalize not being okay. And if you are okay, maybe have a little grace for someone who isn't. With that, Podsters, peace out. See you next week. Can't wait. That's a wrap, Podsters. And before we go, I ask you, what's one thing from today's episode that you will use this week to unmute yourself? DM me, email me, send a smoke signal, whatever you need to do. Let me know what you're going to do differently. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you know and leave a 5-star review on Apple. This helps me spread our message of empowerment to more people worldwide. Let's do this.